Hello, everybody. This is Jacob Jans. I want to thank you for being here. Today, we're going to be talking about freelance writing, how to launch your writing career, and we're going to be taking live questions from you. If you have any questions, please ask, and we will answer them. Last week, we did a webinar, and actually, we had so many people attend the webinar that it crashed our server, so we couldn't actually talk to as many people and answer as many questions as we wanted to. So we wanted to make up for that by presenting another free training and doing a Q&A session so that we can answer your questions and give you as much value as you can for your time. So today, Ian Chandler put together a presentation that answers a lot of the common questions we get about freelance writing and about writing launch and the No BS class on freelance writing. So he's going to be presenting that. He really has a lot of great, valuable information to share. He's very passionate about helping his fellow writers succeed with freelance writing. When he started out, he didn't have mentors or anyone to really guide him through the process. So he struggled in a lot of ways that we don't want you to have to struggle. So many people, they don't know how to get started with freelance writing. They love to write. They're very passionate about writing. I personally, that's kind of what happened with me. Is I'm a creative writer. I love to write. I write poetry, but that is something that is very difficult to build into a business. So I wanted to personally find a way in my life to get started as a freelance writer and to make money with writing. And that's something that I had to kind of stumble in the dark to find out how to do. And so that's a big part of what we're all about with Writing Launch, is helping you get started so that it's not a mystery, so that you can get started with confidence with your freelance writing. I think that's enough for now. I'm going to turn it over to Ian, who is going to do a presentation, and then we'll take your questions. So at any point, if you have any questions, type them in the comment box, and we will get to them right after Ian's.
All right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, first of all, thank you all for being here and being so patient with us about the last webinar we did, because we had a great turnout and it was just so much bigger than we expected. So we're sorry for those issues. Today, I thought I would run over a few of the most frequently asked questions that we get, go into a little detail about those, and then we're going to open up the floor for a general Q&A, and then Jacob and I will answer as many questions as we can get to and give you as much helpful information as we can. And I just before we get started, I want to kind of preview a question I'll be talking about, which concerns what Jacob said about creative writing. I am decidedly not a creative writer. I'm just through and through a freelance writer only, and I think it's good to have these different perspectives at play. And we're going to be talking about the relationship between creative writing and freelance writing. So if that applies to you, definitely stick around to hear about that. So I will pull up the slides and then get started right about now. Okay. So here's we're gonna first go over a few frequently asked questions, and then we're going to open up the floor for a general Q&A. And then at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about Writing Launch, in case maybe you missed the webinar, you haven't had a chance to look at it, or you're just curious about it. And if you have any questions about Writing Launch or freelance writing in general at any time, leave them in the comments, and we'll get to as many as we can. So the first question that I wanted to cover was one we get quite a bit, and that is, does Writing Launch cover fiction, poetry, novels, memoir, or other types of creative writing? And the short answer is that we don't. And the reason is because these are generally not included under the umbrella of freelance writing. Jacob put it perfectly, creative writing has a lot of benefits, but at the same time, it is significantly harder to make into a career than freelance writing. And that's not to say that you can't make a living or a successful career with creative writing. You certainly can. However, in this day and age, and because of what the marketplace is looking for. It's a lot easier and a lot more lucrative to be a freelance writer than a creative writer, just strictly speaking from the business perspective of things. So since we cover freelance writing, we generally don't talk a whole lot about creative writing. We talk, about article writing, copywriting, more of that slant of things. And like I said, the reason is, or one of the reasons, is mostly because freelance writing and creative writing rarely coincide. The types of writing you'll do in a freelance setting are a lot different than what you'll do in a creative setting. And I've had experience writing with both, and they are just so drastically different that it takes a pretty new skill set for a creative writer to transition into the freelance writing life. And so that's where we kind of help bridge the gap, because our flagship course, the No BS course on freelance writing, helps you to close that knowledge gap and learn all the skills you need to build a successful freelance writing career. And that's no matter where you're coming from. If you're coming from a creative writing background, or if you just like to write, or if you've been a writer for a while and just are struggling to make ends meet, whatever the case may be, that's what we go over. And like I mentioned, in my experience, freelance writing is much more lucrative. And like I said, you can certainly make a living with creative writing, but I found that it's much easier to make a living with freelance writing, and the opportunities in freelance writing, if you know the steps to take and if you do it right, it can become an enormously successful career for you. And that's what I found to work for me, and I've built a great career as a freelance writer. And I think that sort of freedom and flexibility with my career, and the amount of compensation I receive for my career, is something that we would both like all of you to have. So that's a really overview of why we don't really cover a lot of creative writing. And that's not to say we won't talk about it in the future, but we just talk more about the freelance writing in general. So I hope that answers that question. If you have any further questions about it, definitely leave them in the comments, and we'll get to those. First question. The second one is a follow-up to that, and it's, what topics do writing launch courses cover? And we cover quite a bit. I want to start by saying that we mostly cover the freelance side of freelance writing. And what I mean by that is that we don't really cover a lot of the craft areas, like helping with editing or grammar or anything like that. We that you already know how to write well and love to write, and have that passion for it, and you want to make a living with that skill. There are so many good places that you can go to refine your writing itself in terms of craft aspects. When you take that jump to making writing into a career, that's a completely different ballgame, and so that's what we help with. So just a few of the topics we cover are pitching, marketing, networking, setting rates, building a website, and communicating with editors and clients. So it's a lot of the brass tacks of freelance writing. And one of the reasons that we build writing launches is because there are a lot of courses and a lot of resources that you can use to improve your writing, the actual writing itself. But there aren't really a lot of good places that have a comprehensive overview, and a detailed overview at that, a step-by-step process, that is, toward building a freelance writing career. So, we've taken all of our experience and the experience of, many other successful writers, consolidated it into all these huge courses that we now offer. And so we're kind of filling the gap that we saw was needed to help writers become freelance writers. So if you want to improve your writing itself, there are so many great resources to go. And if that's something that you're after, I would encourage you to seek out those resources. There are a lot of great books on that. There are courses you can take on both locally and online and all that. And then once you want to make that into a full-fledged career, that's when you would want to come to Writing Launch. and learn the skill set necessary to turn your passion for writing into a legitimate career. In the future, we're going to cover many more topics than what's listed here. And these are just a few because we cover so many aspects of freelance writing that I couldn't really put them all into a nice, neat list that was also short. So if you don't see a topic here, maybe about blogging or about some other aspect of being a freelance writer, we will probably cover it in the future in a course or in a webinar or something like that. So I would watch out for that. And if you have any suggestions, feel free to email us and we will definitely consider those. The third question that I got, and this is a question I'm actually really glad I got, that we got a lot, because that shows that not a lot of people are, which is, pretty good. So I got the question, what is a content mill? Because I referenced these in the last webinar. Basically, a content mill is a company that subcontracts hundreds or thousands of writers for their clients. It's these huge, almost like factories of online factories, that just hire so many writers to create content. And there are several downsides to this arrangement. Basically, freelancers have to churn out outrageous amounts of work. This is a quantity over quality type of situation. And the reason that is because they pay literally next to nothing and treat freelancers horribly. And this is sort of a product of the outsourcing phenomenon. A lot of businesses are asking themselves, how can we get passable content, and how can we get it cheaply and quickly? And there are sadly a lot of writers who will charge almost nothing and put themselves through a lot of grief and a lot of pain to put out a lot of work in a short amount of time, just because they think that's all there is, and because they want that what little money they think they can get. So it creates this horrible atmosphere where the writers are treated horribly. The pay is you're almost working for free, and there's a lot of pressure to just create a ton of content, and there's no emphasis on quality. It's essentially just like like I mentioned earlier, a huge factory where freelancers are treated more like machines than people. And some examples, these are more well-known ones. There are certainly others, but Demand Media, Text Broker, Constant Content, Xeris, Writer's Domain, Blogmut Media Show, those are all content mills. If you, there are some signs of content mills. Usually you have to apply, maybe, there might be a lengthy application process that makes it sound legitimate. But, if the front page of the website talks about, like outsourcing content or providing content for businesses that's easily attainable and cheap, it's probably a content mill. So that's what you kind of want to be on the look for. And what I'd recommend is actually visiting some of these sites. Google them, see what their sites look like, and then you'll get an idea for what content mills in general look like, and then you'll know to avoid them in the future. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't address some of the arguments for content mills. When are content mills appropriate? That's sort of the question that a lot of people are asking, and I get often I'll talk about this with writers, and I read a lot of articles on this as well. And the most common argument that I see for content mills is that they provide a constant stream of work. Another one is that they do pay. And it is consistent. And yet another argument in favor of content mills is that they can help train new writers and give them the skills they need to move forward. I disagree with all of those. And I think that content mills are never appropriate and that you should avoid them at all costs. And there are several reasons for that, but for one, the atmosphere that content mills create is not any indication of what freelance writing is like. From what I was never working for a content mill, thankfully, but from what I've read, the experience is so opposite of what I have encountered. And I've had a ton of good opportunities and clients, and I've never run into the problems that content mills tend to create. So, and another reason I think is because it's really a waste of your time. And if you're on a content mill, you're selling yourself short. You're being ordered around to create just filler content for a lot of sites, and you're not bettering your craft. Because it's so much quantity over quality, focus on the writing itself and creating good content for publications or private clients. And since you're doing that for essentially free, and you're trying to work hours and hours a day to produce the amount of work that is required of you, it's overall just, it sounds like a horrible experience. If you want to read more about this, if you Google just content mills, there's an article from a blog called Make a Living Writing that addresses it talks about writers who wrote for content mills and their stories. And if you just Google around, you'll see a lot of articles about writers who wrote for content mills, and it's sometimes very scary. So if you're interested, if you were thinking about working for a content mill, I would encourage you to take a wider look around and see that there are other and better ways, and that content mills will really just do you a disservice. They'll waste your time, they'll cost you money and energy, and overall I would just say avoid these at all costs. So that's a brief overview of content mills and why you shouldn't use them, in my opinion. Another question that we got, and this is one that I was kind of but it's a very valid question all the same, and that is, why is writing lunch worth $47 a month? And I realize that for a lot of people, $47 a month it's not pocket change. It's certainly not a lot of money, but at the same time it is an investment. So I wanted to talk about what do we offer for that $47 a month price tag. So we offer 4 complete courses, and that's just as of this date. There are several more on the way, and we're going to be adding more as we go along. And currently we have 11 weeks of ongoing training. So that means if you started today, you could go through our 4 courses in the next 11 weeks, and you'd stay busy with all new information, all new exercises, and things like that. And of those courses, we cover 4 different topics. Within the courses themselves, we cover so many topics. The No BS course, it talks about so many things from pitching to contacting clients to setting your rates to developing an online presence, and it's just so much information that it really can't be categorized. So you're learning a bit of everything. And then in our Bulletproof Pitching System course, that's a 4-week course that's entirely about pitching, and the last week has you going out and pitching left and right and honing your skills. So that's a very action-based course. And then our other 2, which are shorter courses, talk about building your writer's website and then getting the most out of your writing time or your workday. So between all of that, you're already hitting a lot of aspects of freelance writing. And we have a new course that I'm currently finishing up on writing for blogs, and then we're going to have several more in the near future. So we want to offer as much high quality training on different topics as we can. But right now we do have 4 complete courses, which is the 11 weeks. So that's part of what we offer for that. And keep in mind that these are step-by-step instruction. We leave no stone unturned. After you finish a lesson, you'll know exactly what to do to move forward with that information. You'll have actionable information that you can take and use to further your career either that day or in the near future. So we walk you through the entire process of doing literally everything. We've created these courses so that you don't have any questions about anything. And if you do, and we'll get to that in a little bit, you have unlimited support. Cover a wide variety of topics. So if you've wondered about any aspect of freelance writing, we probably already cover it, and if not, we will soon. We also give detailed answers to your most burning questions on any area of freelance writing, and that's because you get unlimited support. We have our Q&A forum where you can ask anything and get both feedback from Jacob and myself, and as well as your fellow writers. And it's our goal to make sure that if you have any burning questions, they get answered in thorough detail. We also have exclusive ebooks, discussions, webinars, and other events to help you further your career and give you even more information. And then you get direct and unlimited help from a freelance writer and marketer, me, and an editor and marketer in Jacob. So you get information straight from people who have who are doing this for a living and who have learned freelance writing and marketing and editing the hard way. We both of us learned a lot from experience, and we're sharing that experience with you, so you don't have to go through as much as we did. So I hope that gives you a fuller picture of what that $47 a month will actually get you. And we're always adding more, and we're always we want to do as much as we can for our members. So if we get a question, we make sure to answer it in as much detail as possible. If we get a request, we try to fulfill it as soon as possible. And with all of that, I think obviously I'm a little biased, but if I had this option when I was starting out, and if I knew it was going to help me short circuit the process of getting to where I wanted to be, then I would have gladly invested in it. And that's what it is. It's an investment in your future. I'll just say real quickly that a lot of the articles I write, and they're not terribly long articles either. They pay anywhere from 100 to 200 or even upwards of 300 sometimes. And I get several of those a month, and that's because I've used the techniques in this in Writing Launch to get to where I am today. So even if you get an assignment every month, and that's you get like a $50 article a month, you get paid $50 every month for just one article. That's already paying for your Writing Launch membership. And with the skills that you learn, if you execute them and if you follow everything, I wouldn't be surprised if you were making way more than that. And that's our goal, to get you paid and published and help you find the kind of writing opportunities that you want to find. So yeah, that's just a little bit about Writing Launch. And if you have any questions that we didn't cover about this, feel free to ask them and we'll get to them. So now I think we'll open it up to a general Q&A. So Jacob and I will answer as many questions as we can get to, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Writing Launch.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. And thank you everyone again for being here. We do have a question from Donna Roberts. She asks about, her question is, I have a question about writing ads asking for pitch ideas. I feel like they are trolling for ideas rather than really looking for writers. Is this a common thing for agencies wanting you to provide ideas before even an interview? I feel like her question is actually kind of in two parts. There's the question about writing ads, and then there's the question about pitches, which are actually separate in my mind, at least. I would say if you're finding an ad, that's not generally the way you want to approach a publication. But at the same time, there are so many publications that are very legitimate that want you to pitch them before they pay you, and that is kind of the standard. So Ian, maybe you can go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree on the aspect of ads. As far as pitching goes, I have usually found, and this is just my experience, and Jake, maybe you can talk about this in a moment, but most publications, even if they have a great idea, they generally won't, try to steal your ideas. What you have to be more concerned about is publications who ask you to submit an entire article before you get paid. Now, normally that's not a problem. If you have a good, reputable publication, then you have nothing to worry about. But some publications that are smaller, if they ask you for an entire article up front, and especially if you can't find much about the publication or it doesn't seem very big at all, or if it doesn't seem like people even read it, then that could be a warning sign. And that happened to me. I went to a job posting and wrote a couple articles and sent them off, and then I never heard back from that person again, and their email, was defunct in a couple of days. And I haven't, to this day, I haven't seen those articles anywhere, so I don't think they were used without my permission. But at the same time, I wasted a lot of time and energy writing those. So I would say that's what you have to be more worried about. If generally in my experience, a publication asks for pitch ideas because they want to get a sense of both who you are as a writer and what you can offer to their publication, because they want to make sure you have fresh ideas that are relevant to the publication.
Yeah, as an editor, I want to add that I really like getting pitches because and a good pitch is usually a very short email that clearly states what it is that the writer is offering me, and then I can quickly decide whether or not that works for me as a publisher. The vast majority of publishers are not going to steal your idea. In fact, they usually already have thought of most of the ideas in their area of specialty anyways, and they're just looking for the right person to write a qualified article for that publication. And they would really love it if you come up with a new idea that they haven't thought of before. But I was talking about this with a friend earlier. As an experienced editor, over time, they're just going to be learning more and more about the topic area that they specialize in. So it's actually very hard to give them a brand new idea. So there's really no need to worry about whether or not they're going to steal your ideas. Really, they're just looking for a competent writer who can execute a good idea well and is easy to work with. And if you can do that, and if you can prove that you can provide that to an editor, then you often have a very good chance of standing out and getting the job. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ian.
No, I think that sums it up pretty nicely between what both of us said. Yeah. And just a word on, pitching. If it is best to keep your pitches short, and that's something we talk about in both the No BS course and the Bulletproof Pitching System course. So, even if a publication were to just, run away with your idea, they still wouldn't have the whole picture of it. And yeah, as Jacob said, editors, usually have thought about every idea in the book. So if you're writing for a good, reputable publication, then I wouldn't have any worries about that.
We just got a question from Kendall Davis. She says she pitched AARP last week, and they said they'd get back to her within 5 business days. So what should she do if they don't get back to her?
That's a very crucial topic, actually. It's interesting, the thing about pitching, because I think initially you would think about the first pitch, but in many ways it's not the first pitch that matters. I know Jacob has a great story that you might want to tell in a minute about following up, but I'll just quickly say that following up can really make a difference. In this specific case, since they have a specific time frame, I would wait until that 5-day period has passed and maybe wait a couple days more just to give a bit of elbow room for the editors. So maybe after a week or 8 days or maybe even 10, send a short follow-up, asking, if they got a chance to review your pitch. And a little trick that I use is I include the original pitch in the follow-up, or I just respond using the same email thread, so that when the editor opens it, they'll see my new message and then the oldest message in that thread. So that either way, they have a reference point to see your original pitch. But with especially with a bigger publication like AARP, which I'm surprised that they have just a 5-day window, because they're a pretty big publication. Generally those editors just get slammed with a bunch of work and a bunch of pitches. So if yours gets lost in the mix, just follow up once or twice, and then if you don't hear anything back, I would just pitch it somewhere else.
I want to add to this the question of how long do you wait to query about a pitch if you haven't heard back. And I was actually talking about this earlier today with a friend, and I realized that it really does depend on the individual publication. And one of the things that you can look at in order to decipher how long you should wait to them, well, first, sometimes they say explicitly on their website or their submission guidelines how long to wait in order to query. But if they don't, one thing to look at is how often does that publication actually publish writing. So if they only publish, say, 2 editions a year, then you should expect a much longer wait time and a much longer window. So maybe even wait several months. But if they're, for example, a newspaper, maybe even wait just a couple weeks. I love the story of the writer who watched one of our webinars, and we talked about this in the webinar. She had recently sent a pitch to the LA Times and hadn't heard back from them. And after watching our webinar, she queried them just a short, polite email about her pitch. And a couple days later, she was accepted and published. So really, the amount of time to wait can be very short, or it can be very long. It really does depend on the publication. I know I have a friend who was published, and it was literally 4 years after she had sent in the piece of writing that she got the letter back saying it was accepted, and she didn't even remember what it was that she had sent them. So these things are often take much longer than you expect, but sometimes they can happen very, very quickly too. We have a question from Danielle Martin. She asks, if I create my own webpage for my writing, am I allowed to post things that I sell or plan to try to sell on my website?
Yeah, generally I would say, yeah. This is a topic that we briefly covered because we talk about in the No BS course, we talk about how to establish authority in your niche. So that's something that we do cover, but it's not a topic that we have explored just yet, because this sort of falls into the more entrepreneurship or marketing side of things. And if you're interested in that, there are a ton of great marketing blogs to check out, and a lot of more sales-oriented or entrepreneurship-oriented blogs. So I'd say this is sort of, in many ways, it's sort of outside the realm of freelance writing, because if you're selling something, you're essentially you are building a brand, and that's something we do talk about in the No BS course. But it's a brand in a different way, because as a freelancer, your brand is your writing. But once your brand becomes a product or a series of products, then you're sort of going in a slightly different direction.
I would add that if you want to publish these writings in already established magazines, newspapers, websites, they generally don't want that to have been previously published. So if you plan to submit that writing elsewhere other than your website, then it's best to not post it on your website, out of respect for the publication who will eventually pay you for it. So that's my addition to that. We have a question from Deb, who just signed up for our course, and she's wondering when it begins or how to get started. Deb, if you're having any issues specifically with starting the course, send us an email at support@writinglaunch.com. But if you want to get started, it's a self-directed course, so you can actually start it on your own time. Go to writinglaunch.com/members, and then you'll be able to log in and click on the No BS course on freelance writing, and you will be able to start right away and do your first lesson. And again, if you have any specific questions beyond that at all, or if you're having any issues getting there or getting started, please send us an email. We're here to help you. And beyond that, even if you have any questions along the way. We want you to take advantage of our service as much as possible. We want you to be successful. So please ask us any questions via email, support@writinglaunch.com, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. I did get some questions via email from Shakira, and she's asking about, she had a number of questions on the topic of actually doing interviews and encountering people and approaching them. And it sounds like she's talking about more from a journalism perspective and like doing the actual work, which isn't something we cover as much on Writing Launch. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, Ian.
I don't have a lot of experience in that sort of field, so I'm sorry, but I wouldn't be of much help. The journalistic style of writing is, that it is definitely part of the freelance writing economy, and that's a topic we very well might cover in the future. Find someone experienced to teach on that. But yeah, as far as actually going out and doing that sort of field work, I'm afraid I don't have a lot of good tips on that. Sorry about that.
I do have some advice. One of her questions is, how do I introduce myself to people I am interested in writing about without seeming creepy? I think that's actually a really good question. And it's about building a relationship with someone. How do you treat the people you talk to with respect and not just seem like you're just trying to get something from them? And honestly, the best way to do that is to be very straightforward, to say, hello, my name is Shakira or Jacob, and tell them what publication you represent and ask them straightforwardly, can I interview you? That is something that you'll often find people respond to very well. Just tell them who you're writing for and ask for a few minutes of their time. And they can say yes or no, and either way is perfectly fine. So in terms of the specifics of practicing journalism, I'm not an expert in that. There are often local classes and community colleges that can cover that. That's outside of my area of expertise. Sorry, I do wish I could help more with that. See if we have another question from Kindle. She asks about style guides. Ian, do you have any ideas or opinions about style guides? I assume she means like the Chicago Manual of Style, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. I'm sort of. There's sort of two sides to that. On one, you definitely do want to be well versed in the kind of style that is appropriate for your niche and for the types of publications that you write for. But on the other hand, and this is something that the new blogging course will cover, or blog writing course, I should say, there is just at least if you're talking about writing for online publications, there's that I found that isn't quite anything that's explicitly stated in the style guides. It's not AP, it's not Chicago, it's not MLA, it's not this or that. It's just a style that's unique to blog writing. And I think that same thing goes for a lot of these days as well. A lot of print publications actually have their own style guides. So if you want to write for them, you have to look at that. So with respect to that, I think actually investing in a style guide, it probably isn't the best idea, at least in this day and age. If you do want to research any of that, the information is available for free online, pretty much all of it. There's this great site called the Purdue Owl, which is the online writing lab at the Purdue University, and they have a lot of information about styles. But I would recommend two things. The first, and this is something I would recommend to every writer, is to get a copy of The Elements of Style by Strunk and White and study that, because I think that's one of the most essential texts for a writer to have, just because it covers a lot of the general things that you'll run into in many style guides. So that's sort of a good general overview of what you'll need to approach writing. Second thing is that I think a lot learning the style of a publication is done by studying the publication itself. So if you want to write for a certain publication, you really do need to read it first. You don't have to be an avid reader, but you should spend some time researching it and getting to understand that style. And that's something, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about in the upcoming course on blog writing. Like if there's a blog you want to write for, read it for a while, spend a couple weeks following it and seeing what kind of content they produce and how they produce it. Same goes for print publications or any type of publication. Hands-on experience and in that style is going to be a lot more beneficial than investing in a big guide or anything like that.
I think that's just a second. So we also have another question from Kindle. She got turned down from a company called Influence on Co. at one point, and she sent them as part of the application. She wrote an article, and their fine print says any work generated from this test cannot be published or republished without permission. She asked for permission to use it in her portfolio, and they said no. And she was invited to reapply at the end of May, and they said they were on the fence with her. So she's rewriting it and changing the names and terms, and so because she thought it was a good article. I would first want to say that this company sounds like they don't respect writers, frankly. That's a pretty bad sign. If they're asking you to write for free and then not actually allowing you to use that writing on your own terms, that is a pretty big red flag. So I would expect in the future for them to not treat you very well as a writer. So I would personally be very wary about working with any company that treats you in such a way that would ask you to write for free and not give you, not let you actually have any of that writing. Ian, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
I would add that, yeah, this is sort of a scummy situation on the company's behalf, but it does kind of have a hard lesson in there that's just, about always reading the fine print, because that is where a lot of companies will try to get you. And a lot of times, you'll come across obtuse terms that, you don't understand. And there's kind of two ways to go about that. Personally, I've never written for any publication or company or individual who had rather obtuse, contracts or agreements or whatever. Most of them have just been very straightforward. And if I was confused about anything, I just asked about it, and usually it wasn't anything big. But yeah, I mean, whenever you're applying for a job, if there is some sort of agreement, you want to read that thoroughly. And it might seem like a waste of time, or it might seem like a laborious task, but it really is worth it. And in reality, like if this company probably isn't going to come after you, but at the same time, if it happened with a bigger company, you could be in some trouble with that. So yeah, I would just say always read the fine print and make sure you're moving forward with full knowledge of what the terms and conditions are, because that's very important to keep in mind and be aware of.
Ian, Kendall asked also if you could repeat the name of that book. Was it The Elements of Style?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. That is a great book, and there's actually an illustrated edition that is a lot of fun, and it has great illustrations to go with the writing, and I recommend taking a look at that edition in particular if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I will just add real quick to that there's a free version floating around online, but it's missing an essay on style from E.B. White, and I think that particular essay, because that was in a later edition, it has a lot of value in it, and it even though this was written in I think the 50s or 60s or somewhere around there, it's surprisingly relevant to a lot of today's work. So if you can find the edition with White's additional essay in the back of the book. I would recommend that, taking a look at that one too.
So if anyone has any more questions, please add them in the comment box, and I'll make sure that we get to them. We really want to answer your questions, so please feel free to ask at any point. I want to add that the No BS course on freelance writing, it was created specifically because so many writers, they don't know how to get started with freelance writing. And it can be so frustrating to know that you want to get paid to write and you just don't know how to do it. Or maybe you have gotten paid to write a few times and you've gotten a few actually well-paying gigs, but you want to expand your base and grow your income as a writer. That's why we created the No BS course on freelance writing. And we want to make it so that you as an individual don't have to stumble around in the dark trying to get these paid writing jobs. There's really a straightforward process to getting paid to write and to building your career as a freelance writer. And there's straightforward steps you can take to get paid to write over and over again. That involves knowing how to approach writers, knowing how to approach publishers in a way that gets their attention and wins clients. And so Ian generously has shared his pitch template. If you haven't gotten that pitch template, actually, we will send it to you. Just send us an email at support@writinglaunch.com and we'll give that to you. It's a great tool for getting published and approaching publishers in a way that is very effective. So that is one of the things that's covered a lot in the No BS class on freelance writing, is getting your pitch to publishers to be very effective so that you can have the best chance of success and so that you can win clients over. And another thing that people have a lot of questions about is building a portfolio. How do you build a portfolio that wins you writing clients, that looks good, that shows that you are the right person for the job? I know Ian talked about this in our last webinar a bit, and I remember, Ian, do you want to go into a little bit about the basics of building a portfolio?
Sure, yeah. The most important thing, in my opinion, is that your portfolio has work that has been published somewhere that's not your own site or blog, and that is work that gives you a byline. And the reason for that is simply social proof. If you take a site like Forbes, for instance, if someone sees you've been published on Forbes, they're going to be like, wow, there must be something, their writing must be good. After all, they were published on the site that a lot of people read. And it's a very, basic psychological thing going on, but it's really effective. And in my experience, very few times have clients, really contested anything in my portfolio in terms of, it not being what they were looking for. I think most clients, at least I'm just talking about private clients here, not editors. Most private clients just want to see that your work has been published elsewhere and that your writing is good. Because a lot of clients, they don't really know what makes good writing, and that's why you're talking with them. And they trust you as the expert, but they want to see that you're the expert. So that's why I think byline work is so important for that. If you're pitching to publications, it's a little trickier, just because you'll definitely want to have that credibility. Because for private clients, if your work is just published, somewhere, they're going to give you the time of day. But for most publications, I think editors are, they just want to. They care more about your content than where you've been published, and I think for a lot of clients, it's more where you've been published. But it's a little bit of both directions. But if you aim for publications that are fairly well known or fairly widely read, and you get a bylined piece in your portfolio, that is you are on the right track with that.
Thank you, Ian. And if you have more questions about building a portfolio, the course, the No BS course on freelance writing, does go into detail about that. And we can always, if you join Writing Launch, we can have a dialogue about your portfolio and help you build a portfolio on an individual basis. So we have another question about, is it a good idea to study all types of content marketing, which includes infographics? What about expanding our knowledge? And I would say, of course, it's always wonderful to expand your knowledge. I've often been surprised at which pieces of knowledge and what information I've found to be valuable in the long term, especially in terms of content marketing. I've been doing content marketing and online marketing for over 10 years now, and so I've done a lot of stuff related to that. And I would say every single piece of knowledge I've gathered in terms of content marketing has come in handy in the long run, and often it's just a matter of finding the right tool for the job. Currently, I do a lot of Facebook marketing, and which is something I never thought I would be doing a few years ago. So staying on top of these things in the industry, especially if you're want to focus on web writing, blog writing, and content marketing, that is a very good thing to do. And I don't know, Ian, how much of that you talk about in the course you're building for blog writing. Can you say that?
Yeah, since that specific course is mostly about just writing articles for blogs, it doesn't really go into a lot of the skills that you can derive from that. But I would echo completely what Jacob said, and that's something I found to be true for myself. I also do marketing alongside with writing, so I have knowledge in both of those areas. But I think that goes with any niche that you're knowledgeable in, because if you're just knowledgeable about a niche in general, it doesn't take too long for you to learn how to write a specific form. So if you're writing articles about cooking, and then someone approaches you to do a Facebook ad about cooking, that's not too much of a gap for you. You know what I mean? And you should definitely still specialize, but if you know how to write about a niche, generally you can write pretty much a lot of different types of writing. So I've done infographics, I've done articles, I've done ads, all kinds of different stuff, and it comes pretty easily, because if you just know a niche so well, you can write about it in different formats. So there's other stuff like white papers, ebooks, guides, even video writing scripts for videos like that. So it presents itself to have you write in the same niche, but maybe in a different format than you're used to. See if that's something you feel comfortable with, because if you can expand your skill set within your niche, that can be a really valuable tool, and it can open the door for more compensation and better compensation too.
Another question: how do you determine if your website is effective without spending a lot of money? That is something I am actually an expert in, and part of why I built the Effective Writers website course is so that you can be able to build a website without wasting time and money. To answer your specific question, the core of it, how do you determine if your website is effective without spending a lot of money? The key answer there is you want to have a specific measurable action on your website that you want people to take. For example, signing up for an email newsletter, or purchasing a product, or filling out a contact me form. And then as you spend money, time, or effort to get people to that website, you want to be able to measure very specifically how many of those people are doing that specific action. And then you can determine how many of those people end up generating income for you, or achieving or fulfilling the goals you've set up for that website or your career or whatever it is that is specific for your needs. And you can do that using a number of techniques. Google Analytics is a free service that provides a lot of information about how to measure what happens on your website. And so that is a really useful tool. I could spend a lot of time talking about how to do that. That's part of why I created the Effective Website course. I think that's about it for the time we have for questions. I want to wrap up by saying thank you to everyone who has spent your time with us. If you have any more questions, send us an email, support@writinglaunch.com. We're really excited to be open for enrollment in Writing Launch. And if you want to join the No BS class on freelance writing, enrollment does close on Thursday. So if you have any questions about that specifically, send us an email, support@Writing Launch. We'll answer them. We created this course and we created Writing Launch so that you can get the most value out of your time, so that you can invest in yourself and your career, and really short circuit a lot of the stumbling blocks that happen to writers. We want you to be confident in your career as a writer. We want you to be able to confidently approach publishers, confidently get your work out there. So Writing Launch is for you to build and launch your writing career with confidence. It's something that I feel very strongly is a very valuable program. And honestly, I think it's too cheap at this point, because we're providing coaching for you for $47 a month. If you take full advantage of that coaching, we're making almost no money per hour, which is actually something we want you to do. We want you to take advantage of our service as much as possible. So we are open for enrollment, and it's closing on Thursday. Ian, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, to extend that, I just want to, I have one more quick slide up here to talk about Writing Launch for just a moment, because I just wanted to reiterate what you'll get. Is just $47 a month, and that means unlimited access to all of our courses and resources, all the 4 classes currently, more on the way. We have that Q&A forum to help you get feedback directly from us and from fellow writers, free ebooks, unlimited email support, and a lot more. And reason that we developed Writing Launch is just because there is just such a lack of good, comprehensive information about freelance writing, and I think that's why so many freelance writers struggle. It's not that it's impossible to make a career with freelance writing, it's because they don't know where to look. So that's why we built this entire course, and as Jacob aptly mentioned, we are offering coaching for a really low price. I mean, there are a lot of coaching services that just bill themselves as this awesome solution, and they charge upwards of like $500 for one phone call. Some of them do, and we just don't want. We're all about no BS. So that's another reason why we started it. And I should mention, you can during this enrollment period, you can become a member of Writing Launch for $47 a month and get unlimited access to everything, or you can purchase just the No BS course. Jacob, do you know the price on that?
Yeah, the investment is $277 for the No BS course, and before we started Writing Launch, that's the price we sold it at and we sold out of the class at that time. So that's if you want to just do a one-time investment for an individual class, that's what it would be.
Yeah, and if you do choose that option, you do get lifetime access to that particular course. Whereas if you're a Writing Launch member, if you stop being a Writing Launch member, you will no longer have access to that material, but you will as long as you're a member. So whichever works better for you. We just hope that you'll be able to take advantage of this information, because we put a lot of work into it, and this is stuff that works. This is in no way snake oil sales or anything like that, and if you go through it and if you really apply it and put effort into it, you'll see that it works. And we're always available to help. You can email us directly. You can ask on the Q&A forum. Whatever it is, we are always willing to help further your career. So if you're on the fence, I hope maybe all of this makes your decision a little bit easier. And if you have any questions, as Jacob said, just email us at support@writinglaunch.com, and we always respond to as many emails as we can. If it slips through, just send us another one, and we'll make sure to respond. And thank you for sticking around and asking questions, and I hope this was all helpful for you.
That's it for today's broadcast. Thank you again, everybody, and have a good day.